Okay. Hallelujah. So, chapter 6 and 7. I
Right?
bumped into something today that I guess I always knew, but it became very apparent to me where I was looking at the forces of destruction again, and the fact that the beginning of this chapter, Deming reminds us we're living under a tyranny and that transformation's required for government, industry, and education. And then looking at the forces of destruction, I guess I always knew, but so many of them have to do with rating and ranking people. And I remember, and I look back at the end of chapter 4. He has a statement about well, the fact that rating and ranking you can't really do very well because you can't separate the effect of the system. And so he's got that equation x plus yx equals 8. You got two variables, two unknowns. And so you can't figure it out. But then in that last paragraph, he says, and it's easy to miss the point that even if you could figure out how to rate and rank people without having to account for the system impact, who would suppose that that improves either the system or the people? So we spend all this time and energy destroying our people by doing these rating and ranking things. And even if we're really good, and even if the rating and ranking were good, it wouldn't make any goddamn difference
Because we're still rating and ranking people.
because the performance is going to be the same. The rating and ranking doesn't change anybody's performance, doesn't change the performance of the
Uh-huh.
system. It all it does is point at belly buttons and classify them. Well, what the hell good is that? And his idea that it's destroying our people. You see it in school, I'm sure.
um, yeah, not so much where I am now, but in traditional school, yeah.
Yeah, it's good that you have either you have or you chose that you were going to execute the freedom you do.
Well, also I can be cocky too, because I'm like, I'm not replaceable.
Well,
I have fancy pants on paper, so let me just do what I want to do.
well, I always figured that if I did stuff my way and they didn't like it, and they decided they might want to fire me, they'd have to tell me about it, and then I'd have to decide whether I cared or not.
Yeah, there's that.
So,
There's that.
okay, fire me. I'll go find something else to do. That's fine.
But the
And
state of Texas in education rate and ranks people because you are automatically admitted to like the top school, UT Austin. I think if you are top 5% or less. So automatically in the state of Texas, you are rated and ranked
yeah, yes, but
based on your height.
doesn't make you any better at performing, and doesn't make the system they're using any better. But
No.
it does allow the categorizing and moving folks around based on the categories.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Some of the engineering teachers, I was working on a master's at the time, and they were like, something about like, oh, all these students are the best of the best. And I was like, I'll put my students on the east side against those students any day. I want you to come to my classroom. And when they did, they were like, wow, they really do think differently. I was like, yeah, these kids are survivors and these kids can problem solve. The other
yeah,
ones are like, I don't know, is this the right answer? I don't know. Is this the right answer? I don't know. Is this the right answer?
that's yeah. That I found it intriguing that the principal that came in to evaluate me came in the first 2 years, and the third year he talked to me and said, when I come in to evaluate you, you're always doing what appears to be good things, but it doesn't appear to be following the curriculum we've got set up. And I said, okay. And he said, so my solution is I'm not going to come in and evaluate you anymore, because then I don't have to write anything down that says you aren't doing what you're supposed to do. I said, that's fine. And I remember the head of the English department was complaining about the kids. The kids these days, they don't want to buckle down. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. and he said, so I'm really strong on grading and in essence rating and ranking. And he said, and it still doesn't make a difference. And I said, have you ever considered that they're not interested in grades? And so you using grades as bait for them to do something is not going to be effective. They don't care.
Right.
They might care about learning. They don't care about grades.
And they might not care about learning because they're teenagers. But
well, yeah, they care about learning, but they care about learning the stuff they want to learn about, not
right.
what the school's telling them they need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, what you need to learn, listening to over the weekend, I got fascinated by that Alyssa Liu, Olympic skater, who says she feels no pressure when she skates in the Olympics, none, zero pressure. And you can see it in her skating. She clearly is having a ball out there. And I read up on her. At 13, she won the U.S. National Championship in skating. 13.
At 13, wow.
She worked out and worked to get going in the 22 Olympics and competed in the 22 Olympics. And then in 2023, retired. So she's 16 years old, retired. Come to find out, one of her coaches now and was a coach part of the time back then, said when she won that national championship and when she was preparing for the Olympics, she was told what to do and she was very good at following the directions and very good at executing everything. But what happened evidently is she didn't care for her life being only regulated by her father and her coaches saying, this is what you got to do now. This is what you got to eat. This is what you got to wear. This is the music you have to use. This is what you have to put in your routine. So she just quit. And then in late or mid 2024, while she was skiing, she felt that fun, the freedom she used to have when she skated. So she decided she'd go back to skating, but she told her father and the coaches, I am going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do it when I want to do it. I'm going to wear what I want to wear. I'm going to use the music I want to use. I'm going to use the tricks I want to use. I'm going to spend as much time as I want to do, or as little time. And they said, okay, which is not, pretty good, both for her dad, who I guess was kind of overbearing in the early years, and her coaches agreed that was okay. And she talked about the fact that when she skates, she doesn't feel any pressure because she's sharing how she feels about the world in her skating and dancing and routine with the audience, and the audience is reacting to her revealing herself, if you will, and giving her feedback, and that feedback makes her even more joyful about what she's doing. And she keeps telling people, they ask her about the pressure, and she says, I don't feel any pressure. I'm out here to skate and have fun, enjoy myself. Mm-hmm. She is somebody who really has joy in working. And I have never seen any athlete at that level of competition mentioning that they're feeling joy in what they're doing. They're panicked all the time. They talk about that. And so I couldn't sleep last night. I was so worried about my routine. And I'm thinking, why would you put yourself through that?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But
external pressures, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I also like this chapter where he has the role of the manager of people, and it's similar
Mhm.
in a way to his 14 points from Out of the Crisis. It's, one of the similarities is he believes these are obligations, this role or obligations of a manager of people. And he believed that the 14 points were obligations of management. So it's if you want to be a manager, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And it's a lot different from the prevailing style, the tyranny.
Yeah, yeah. I liked the coach and counsel, not a judge.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me help you do better. Let me help you learn some more things you might want to learn. And that's the thing. And Deming talked about that. He said when somebody learns something,
Hmm.
the joy is not so much in what they learned, it's that they learned. And so if you can help them with it, it doesn't matter what they're learning. The
Hmm.
joy comes from the learning. It's the experience of learning. Kids use the plan, do, study, act cycle. Deming claims that's the way everybody learns. You have a theory, and whether you know you have a theory or not, you have a method for testing it out, and you respond to the method. Brendan used to do it when I watched him trying skateboard tricks when he was younger, and some of the feedback was rather severe.
Yeah, yeah.
Say, "Whoops, that ain't going to work."
It's feedback. Yeah.
But I could absolutely see in his head him having an idea and then finding ways to test to see if that
Hmm.
idea would work and then making those adjustments. And I said, wow. When Deming said that's the way we learn,
Yeah. I
that
was
is the
literally
way we learn.
watching a kid at the grocery store do that. And it was fascinating because he wanted a muffin in the 4-pack muffin tray, right? And he was just looking at it and he tried to bite the side to open it. And then he put it down and then he would spin it. And then he tried the other side. And then he looked at it and then lifted it back like it would fall in his mouth, right? And the two teenagers that were watching him were like, "Oh, stop." I'm like, no, no, no. This is fascinating for me. Seriously. Like, I'm watching his little brain work right now.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, this must open somehow, and was trying that. And then he got thwarted by adults, which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
But
it's
that's,
kind of a cool process to see, like, okay,
yeah.
maybe it works this way. Maybe I get it out this way.
And I remember telling the teachers I was working with, I said, I'm always fascinated that these kids are learning. I'm also fascinated that it has little to do with me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I said, I'm there if they need me, but frequently they don't need me. And frequently they're not interested in learning what I can help them with anyway. So,
Right. They want to learn. So I try to find their what their passions are, and then we can kind of
yeah,
do things
that's
towards
the Joseph Campbell thing where he talks about
those.
following your passion.
It's so funny how many students I have that are like, they'll take forever in doing something. And I was like, I don't think this class is right for you. Like, I don't think you like this class. Like, no, but I like you. So I want to do okay in it. I want to do well in it. And I was like, I am not the keeper of your learning. Like, we need to find something for you.
Yeah,
Appeasing me is not part of this process.
nope. And that's what's so interesting in the Sudbury Valley schools where the kids go to school and they can do what they want. And they're reminded over and over again they're responsible for their own education and they can
Mm.
use the staff, use each other, whatever they want to learn. And the fascinating thing is that they recognize over time. In the beginning, one of the kids wrote something and said in the beginning, he was just saying it like a mantra. I'm responsible for my own education. But when he was about 13, his light bulb went on and he said, now I get it. I need to decide what I want to learn. Then I need to ask for help on figuring out how I can learn that. That's up
Mhm.
to me. It's not up to anybody else. And I said, now that's amazing. That's what you'd like from kids. Not I'm doing this because I like you, or
I
I'm
have
doing
to
this
take
because
this
I want a
class.
grade.
Yeah.
But no, is this something you want? Follow your passion. And that's
Well, same
too
with
many.
jobs in anywhere in society. It's like, oh, I thought this would be so cool. It's da 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 da. And then like, ugh, the management or ugh, the admin
Yeah,
or this, like, and
yeah,
all the constraints that go with it take the joy out of everything.
yeah, yeah. I found it intriguing too that the teachers I was around, they were normal teachers, and I was part of the teachers union. I think I was VP one year and chief negotiator another year. And what I discovered about them is a rather large portion, I don't know, 10 or 15%, really didn't want to be teachers. And I was thinking, why don't you try something else? And evidently they don't have the courage or self-confidence to try anything else. So they just keep doing something they're not really interested in doing. And I'm thinking, how are you ever going to be good at that? You don't want to do that. You,
Yeah, yeah.
right. And then I'd see the same things in the kids. They don't want to learn that. Well, let's find something they want to learn and help them follow their passion. And I
Hmm.
guess I always, I was never very good at doing stuff I didn't want to do because somebody else had a purpose for me.
Well, that's with anything. Yeah,
So,
I think that's psychology of humans, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
the fact that we haven't grasped that we can use the innate desire for everybody to learn to help them learn more and more. And I know growing up they used to talk about why we have to learn this and why we have to learn that. And when I was being trained as a teacher, they said, well, you're going to get asked why people have to learn this. And they gave me responses that say, well, tell them this, tell them that. And I'm thinking, you're I'm supposed to tell this 14-year-old that the reason he needs to learn how to do this is because when he's 34 years old, somebody might ask him to do something. I said, there's no way he cares about that. That's crazy. It's if you can't help him figure out he wants to learn that for whatever reason,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
it's telling him these weird things that they were telling me. I also grew up, I found it fascinating, starting about seventh grade. I remember hearing every year that you had to have a plan. You have to have a plan. If you're going to grow up and get a job and all that and be successful, you have to have a plan. I'm looking around at my parents and their friends. All these people look very successful. I didn't really see any plans. And I'm thinking about this as what is this plan stuff about? How about if I just go to school and as I learn, I say, well, maybe I'm more interested in this and that, and I'll go to college if that seems interesting. And I never had a plan.
I don't think I still have a plan.
Yeah, my plan is to enjoy what I'm doing at the moment and hopefully make a difference. That's the plan.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I I wouldn't even know how to plan most of what happened in my life. I also like the this chapter because he has that rather graphic point he makes about the interactions being where you need to concentrate on in a system because the interactions are just way outnumber the individuals and the individual actions. So it's about how they work together or don't work together so well. And and it,
Is that this one?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. Says if if you're if you're looking to improve the system, improving the parts taken separately is pointless. It might even make the
Hmm.
system worse. But improving the interactions among the pieces, that has a chance of making stuff happen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and maybe
And
one interaction from one thing is not good.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you can improve that or don't improve it. I think,
yeah.
did you
And
say this or was somebody else that said, like, yeah, you can improve this as much as you want at what cost to the overall system?
yep, that's that. The I don't remember if it was Deming or if it was might have been somebody else. I don't remember it in Deming stuff, but saying that when your focus is on improving one thing, you can improve that thing, and that thing getting better may have no significant benefit and may even be destructive
Hmm.
because the system's relying on all this stuff you got going on, and you change something that they were relying on that's now no longer there. You're not changing it to purposely screw things up, but because you don't understand the interactions, you don't recognize
Yeah,
it's screwing
yeah.
things up.
Well, I notice I do that. So I'm taking a woodworking class because why not? And when my like professor is talking about things and she's like, okay, this dimension has to be accurate. And I'm like, not really. This space touches this space, and that's what I care about. And then what does it do when I offset things? And so like I very much look at it from an engineering perspective. And she came over, she's like, why is everything labeled with lines? She's like, what? And I was like, look, I was an engineer before becoming a teacher. So I was like, C goes here because this has the best fit and this. And so I was doing that. And then I realized, like, oh, that's definitely from my background training of the overall, like, not everything has to be perfect. I know where the critical points are.
That
And it
was
still functions. This is me making a bench. I'm like, it still functions as a bench.
yes. That the woodshop teacher, I got to work with him because we had a special program after I got tired of the real school system. We had a school within a school. So we had all these kids who were high IQ and low skills.
Oh,
And so
yeah,
we
yeah.
got them in small classes, and we got them to do things other than just the classroom. So woodshop was one of the things that they could do. I was in the
Mhm.
woodshop not because I was any good at woodshop, but because I knew how to work with these kids. And and this guy, his wife would point at furniture in the Ethan Allen catalog, and he'd build it. So he was really good at what he was doing, and he was good at working with the kids and helping them recognize how they could do things. But what he told me, I found really fascinating. He says the art of making fine furniture is the ability to cover up one mistake after another.
Because you're gonna make them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. I got a plan. Oops, I made a mistake.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did that. That's funny.
Yes. And the kids, they were very creative anyway, because a whole bunch of them have gotten through, you know, up to be juniors in high school
Hmm.
without anybody having recognized over the years that they can't read and they can't compute.
Yeah, yeah.
They're very good at hiding that. They come across as if and they have low self concepts, but they don't come across as if they come across as if they're full of confidence. It's so it's fascinating, and working with them was really interesting. I had a group of about 10, and they wanted to make a movie, and our classes were 4 weeks long, And so I said, well, okay, we can make a movie, 8 millimeter film back then. And they wanted music. So I had a recorder. So they started planning something and they made a bunch of film and they learned how to edit the film. They learned how to edit the music. They're putting things together. But at the end of the 4 weeks, they weren't quite finished. And I said, well, we can run the class for another 4 weeks and you can make this project bigger.
Mhm.
We went off campus to do some filming. We did all kinds of stuff. When they got back, they showed off their film, probably 6 or 8 minutes long with the music, to the rest of the kids, which we had about 120 kids. And they were so proud of what they did. And the rest of the kids were so proud of what they saw. I can't believe how much self-confidence they that they figured out they could do things. They can do
Yeah.
these things, some things that they didn't. But again, they chose what they wanted to do. They wanted to make a movie. Okay, then that's what we'll do for these 4 weeks. That's way different from me telling them, oh, we're going to learn how to make a movie, or we're going to learn this, or we're going to learn that.
Yeah, yeah.
They're saying, this is what we want to learn. Okay, let's do it. We had quite a few of those kids go on to junior college and and be relatively successful because they built up enough self-confidence to try things. When you have no self-confidence, you aren't going to put yourself at risk by trying anything you
No,
might
you
not
definitely
be able
not.
to do. And
Yeah.
that's what happened to them in school. Everybody just let them just sort of sit over in the corner and not really help them much at all.
Or tell people they're not smart enough.
Yeah. What
That's one
makes you
thing.
think?
So
What
I
makes you
went
think you're smart enough to do that?
I went to a Catholic all girls high school and I was told I was not smart enough to take advanced math my senior year. And so when I went to college and I was like, I'm going to major in physics because MacGyver was a physicist and he was cool. And then I just kept like, oh, but engineering sounds cool. I'm going to try that. And so, it took me longer because I didn't have this math background because I
Yeah.
wasn't a smart kid or whatever. And my grades don't reflect my intelligence at all. But it was one of those things when I graduated, I was like, dude, I did this.
Yeah. That's
But I
cool.
realized I didn't do it alone because my classmates and all, we all worked together and we all built each other up. We all studied together and it was like no, nobody's going to fail. We're all going to do this together. And so that kind of community was really one that helped me and I'm sure everybody else too, like helped us thrive a lot.
Yeah. I went to an all boys Catholic high school,
Ooh.
and it was fabulous. They had 6 majors. And so when my folks said, "You want to go here?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" They had 6 majors, and I passed whatever entrance exam they had. And they said, "What do you want to take?" And I said, "Electronics." I said, "Nah, the electronics class is full. How about physical metallurgy?" And I said, "What's physical
Oh, that's
metallurgy?"
fun.
And they said, "Well, blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Okay." So what we do is half a day of college prep classes, math and English and history and all that.
Mhm.
And then half a day learning, electronics, or in my case, physical metallurgy, learning theories, and then going into a shop that had up to date equipment. It didn't have 40-year-old equipment that some company had donated. It
Yeah,
had
yeah.
stuff donated by companies, but the school, the guys who were going out and gals getting the equipment said, if you give us this, we will guarantee that out of high school, the kids will be able to operate that without you having to do any additional training.
Oh, so basically, like we can train them for you. Yeah.
Yep. And holy cow, we had 8 heat treating furnaces, 16 metallurgical microscopes. We had a 3-meter spectrograph. So we
Wow.
had an X-ray machine, 120 kilovolt X-ray machine. We had all the non-destructive testing stuff you can think of. Pent, Zyglo, we had a big ultrasonic tank. We had eddy current. We had everything. It's unbelievable. And you learn how to use it. And because they taught you theory and then you had to go do something, it was a fascinating way to learn. My friend and I, we learned about how you might take x-rays and what you do and how x-rays work and all that. And we said, great. Then we went in and we were given an assignment that says, here's a part, go x-ray it, come back, tell us what you found. And it was sort of looked like a turnaround duck. So, and it was 4.5 inches tall and hollow because it's a duct. So we were looking at that and we said, okay, so we measured it. Well, what's it made out of? We found out it's made out of aluminum. It's 4.5 inches tall, 4.5 inches thick, we're thinking. We said, okay, so we looked up and said, well, if it's 4.5 inches of aluminum and we have to get the x-ray through 4.5 inches of aluminum, what's that going to take? And it was like a 3-minute x-ray, which is a huge amount of time. And it was like I don't know, 50 milliamps and 120 kV. So it's going to consume a lot of energy. And so we went back and measured everything again and looked everything up. Yeah. So then we ran the x-ray, got it out, went in, developed it, pulled it out and looked at it. And the penetrometers, the things you put in to tell how sensitive the x-ray is, they're completely black. You can't really see them. The whole thing's black except for this circle in the middle like this that you can see. And we're saying, what the hell? So we were trying to figure out what happened, couldn't figure it out, went in to talk to the instructor and said, here's what we did. Blah, 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 blah. And he says, and this is what came out. We don't know what happened. And he said, so how much aluminum's there? He said, well, we measured it, it's 4.5 inches. He said, okay. How much aluminum is there? So we told you it's 4.5 inches. How much aluminum is there? And then a light bulb goes on. Well, it's like a 3/8 of an inch on the bottom.
Yeah.
1/4 of an inch on the top. So maybe you got, 5/8 of an inch of aluminum, not 4.5 inches. Duh. But that idea of having a theory and then trying to execute it and having to deal with the results of having executed it, wow, that was amazing. 4 years of that, 4 hours a day.
Oh, wow. That's really, yeah, that's cool.
Yep. Then when I went to Santa Clara, they didn't have metallurgy, so I took mechanical engineering, and they were so happy with their lab. They showed me their lab. I didn't diss them, but I looked at it and said, I'm used to something way better than this. They had a tinsel tester and some hardness testers and a couple of other things.
Oh, and that was it. And you're like, well.
Hey, apologies, everyone. I was on the wrong link all the time.
Oh, no.
What?
Yeah, I was on the wrong link. I just realized.
Shame on you.
I still have to go back to my email and check. True.
Yes. This the chapter 6 also has something else I like, where he talks about the grading procedure where we create artificial scarcity. Not everybody can get an A.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you got criteria, why can't everybody get an A? I don't get it. But for some reason, we've got that. And then we've got the other thing that Don Wheeler used to talk about, and the book in numeracy talks about, is that people are not very good. They can do some mathematics, but they're not very good at recognizing things, like the fact that half of the people are going to be below average no matter what the hell you do. And no matter what the hell you're measuring, it's the nature of averages. And yet parents and teachers and a whole bunch of other people believe that they can get everybody to be above average. I don't even know why you're dealing with averages in the first place, but there's you can't do that. Everybody's going to learn a different amount and probably in a different way, and it's going to be okay. But I like that.
That's what somebody was telling me, and they have like 4 people on their team, and they're like, yeah, I was supposed to rate and rank them for performance evaluations. He's like, I've got no middle person, so I don't.
This chapter 2, he brings up the difference between joint responsibility and divided responsibility. And I find it interesting when I was reading this the first time, and he's got the time card there, and he shows it to you, and at the bottom he says, and the reader will, now that you can see the time card, the reader will easily see what the problem is. And I'm thinking, this reader didn't easily see it. I hope you're going to tell me. He tells me, well, it's two signatures, and each one does a sort of a half-assed job because he figures the other person's going to do the good job, and so he's not really responsible for it. And then said, I think he says that if you change it and make it only one signature, whether it's the manager's signature or the employee's, he preferred it being the employee because the employees should be responsible, but it's just one signature. He said in 10 days, the problem will go away. Didn't take him 10 days. The first time they got the signals, one signatory, and they had to send back a bunch of time cards to people on a Tuesday, they automatically knew they might not get their checks on Friday because they screwed up their time card. And suddenly there were very few time card screw ups, and they'd been having problems with it for a long time. And as Deming pointed out, the problem was you made them both responsible, which makes neither one of them responsible. And as a result, you have to deal with the output.
I think another unique perspective that came across in the chapters was this whole idea of the brightest and the best may not necessarily give you better performance or better quality.
Yep.
So you can hire, and then I mean several examples were kind of shared with regards to like I think what the president of GM would have indicated where you can hire like the best person in every job, but you could be outpaced quality wise, productivity wise, everything otherwise, by those who basically may not be as talented but working together.
Yeah, and Deming's good at reminding us of this over and over again. Nothing is accomplished singly. It's always interactions with something, somebody, some machine, some other people. And the important thing is the method and the interaction. Those are the things that get you the output. It's not the separate talents of the individuals involved or the separate quality of the components involved. It's the interaction among all those things. And so in this chapter, he talks about that. You need to be looking at the interactions. Everything comes from interactions. No matter what I do, it's been influenced by others.
And it's not necessarily additive like A plus, B plus, C plus, but the you know what I'm referring to, the A plus section.
And Deming, I think, brings it up in this chapter. You find somebody who's not doing very well with one company or in one department. They move them to another company or another department, and he turns out to be Superman. and it's, and somehow when we see that, we don't recognize that it's the interaction that the person has with the surroundings that makes the difference. And if the interactions aren't good, it doesn't matter how good the person is, it's not going to work out well. And the whole idea that things happen, that's why I complain about heroes in sports. The guy that shot the last basket and we won 110 to 109 scored the winning points. I said, really? What about the other people who scored points? And we've got this view, and the reason I don't like heroes is if you have heroes, that means you have to have scapegoats. When you win, you have heroes. If you lose, you need scapegoats. It's not about the individual. It's about the group and how they performed. They performed in a way that won this time. They performed in a way this time that lost. It's not about who to blame. We used to call it here at Rocketdyne when somebody made a mistake. We said, well, we're going to go do corrective action. We have to study cause and effect relationships. We're going to find out the root who.
The root who.
Never mind the root cause. We need the root who.
The root who is the idiot.
And no matter what you look at, you can find somebody who's the last one who touched whatever went to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And James Reason, who wrote a book on cause analysis, talks about the fact that he calls it the soup of stuff that's surrounding the system or is part of the system. And this soup is full of all these risks. And, one risk shows up one time and then disappears. And another one shows up. And then every once in a while, three of them show up at the same time and all hell breaks loose. And he says, when you look at what happens when you study these big disasters on oil rigs and in nuclear power plants and in companies, and you look at what goes on, what you find over and over again is this massive stuff that's been around forever has finally yielded a nasty result, and it's only accidental that hasn't happened sooner. And that when the focus is on finding out who screwed it up, you're never going to be able to fix it because you're going to be working on the who, and it's not the who that's the problem. It's this morass of stuff that goes on, some of which is very risky, and you don't acknowledge the risk, don't recognize the risk. And when something goes wrong, you blame somebody as if he created the risk. So I'm just living in this system, guys.
I think it just emphasizes the whole question of the delayed effect. I think Balaji usually says something like the cause and effect may not be connected in terms of time and space.
Yes.
So when the effect is actually manifest, it may be pretty much because of a decision that was taken years ago. So you have to look at that system of causes.
Yep.
In addition to, so like I may have a lot of ancillary things that may be happening in and around that may also be influencing the whether it be a negative outcome or not. So that becomes pretty important to probably also look at when you're taking the systems lens. But then the red bead experiment also kind of highlights this need to avoid the propensity to jump to this the hero or who performing better or just looking at the numbers or the quotas or the slogans and stuff like that may have very little impact on the actual results, and they may be even tampering with a very stable system by taking action based on every outcome that you see.
Yeah, Russ Acuff taught, and Deming's production viewed as a system shows you that if you've got all these areas and they're all interacting, and if the problem shows up in the assembly area, you spend all your time and energy studying the assembly area, but the problem can be anywhere in the system. Bill used to use the comment. He says, when you take your pulse at your wrists and you find out your pulse is 150, you don't say, "What the hell's the matter with my wrist?" You recognize it's a system, and you got to signal there's something wrong with the system. It's not about the wrist.
Mhm.
And we're not always very good at recognizing that. Quit focusing on the risk and start looking for what is going on in the system that's generating this result. And that's why the phrase that the system you have is perfectly designed to get the result you're getting is, I think, a very wise thing to pay attention to. Because the executives, when something goes wrong, they say, "The system's broken." And I used to tell them over and over again, it's not broken. This this system does this every once in a while, and it'll probably do it again if we don't figure out what the hell's going on. It's not broken. This is it. No, it's broken. We didn't get the result we wanted. So the system sucks. Okay, that's, that's not broken. It's just bad.
Yep. I usually use this term that bad design disables and good design enables. I think it's a phrase that they use in the accessibility space a lot, but I think it's appropriate uh, to the quality space as well. In that, we spend so much time, trying to just tweak things and tamper and so on, just making things worse. Sometimes doing nothing is actually the best action.
Yes, yes, that's. And I, I panicked the executives when I was here at Rocket. I in charge of corrective action a lot of the times because they'd be wanting to chase down causes here, there, and everywhere. I'd tell them, I think you can redesign the system so that you don't have to chase this down. You don't have to prove this caused it or that caused it. Make this change, and that thing you're worried about will probably go away. Oh no, we gotta spend a lot of time and energy chasing things down. I said, okay. Russ offers that the the quote best solution when you have a problem with a system is redesigning the system so that the thing that's generating the problem is no longer part of the system. You don't have to find out cause. You just say, if I do this, things are going to go better. How do I know? Well, I understand the relationships here. So you just quit doing this other thing. That's also back to Russ talking about the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Efficiency is doing the right thing, meaning following the rules and regulations. The question is that the right thing to be doing? Because that may be the wrong thing to be doing. The question is, are you doing the right thing? Not are you doing it right? And we get trapped, and when we're doing cause and effect studies to find out who didn't do things the way they were supposed to be done. So, well, you can study that, but that may not be the issue. The issue may be they did the thing the way it was supposed to be done, and that's what created the mess you're in. And I also like the chapter 7 with Deming and the red beads. I've always loved loved his explanation where he's got, I think it's 14 points that are lessons from the experiment with the red beads. And I find it fascinating that except for 2 or 3 of the of the lessons, the lessons are all about managing people better, not about statistics and process control and all that other stuff. And he says over and over again, this experiment is a demonstration of bad management. So what you ought to get out of this is if you manage this way, that's bad. And here's what you should have learned from watching or participating in the red bead experiment. I'm not sure why he comes up with 14 so many. A whole bunch of his things are 14 points.
He likes the number 4.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's coincidental or accidental. I have no idea, but he's got 14 points. He's got what he calls obligations for management. He's got 14 roles and responsibilities for a manager of people. I think he's got 14 lessons learned for the red bead experiment. Okay.
Was it born on the 14th of October? So maybe. No, it was the 14th or the 12th? The 14th.
It is interesting too that the red bead experiment, when you ask people afterwards, what do the red beads mean? Most of the people decide the red beans are defects in the product. And while you can perceive it that way, I think Deming's trying to show that it's not about defects. You're not trying to eliminate defects. You're trying to maximize the output of white beads. And the way you manage people can help you with that. And the way it's being managed in the prevailing style doesn't help you with that. You're not going to increase the rate of white beads produced by doing what they're doing. And so it's not really a defect related thing. Deming thought quality based on measuring things and figuring out what's defective. He didn't think that's much in the way of quality. You can't inspect quality into the product. So finding defects isn't improving the quality of the product. Might be a good idea not to ship that thing to the guy who has to use it if it's defective. So there may be some benefit, but what you're trying to do is figure out how to make the thing you've got better so that it's better for the people who are using it, better for the environment, better for everybody. And so it's not really about defects. In fact, he's got a line in Out of the Crisis where he says something is terribly wrong when a part just inside a spec limit is deemed conforming and one just outside the limit is deemed non-conforming. He said, that's not how the world works.
I also watched the video and it was really, I don't think I've watched it in like, I don't know, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
But yeah. Like the people who got so excited that they got less red beads, even though like you have no control over it and it's basically random.
Yeah.
And then the people's faces when it's like, oh, you did worse than yesterday. What happened?
Yeah, and then I don't remember in the video if he goes through the story, but in here he tells the story of the lady who said she knew this whole thing was a trap in the sense that no matter how hard she tried, she was not going to be in control of making things better. And yet and yet she felt obligated to help make things better and felt disappointed that she couldn't do it, even though she knew it was impossible. So what that shows is how much people want to contribute to things going better. They want to contribute. And even when they know what they're doing can't make it better, they feel obligated somehow to make it better.
Try.
So holy cow. And frankly, instead of tapping into that, we destroy it. People want to make a difference. They want to help, and we need to tap into that. Executives don't usually like getting away from their desks except to talk to other executives, so they don't go around and talk to their people much. Deming says they ought to be going out at least once a year and talking to them to find out who those people are that are working for them. But they don't like to go out. And I remember telling the directors that reported to the VP of quality, I said, I wish you people would go out, walk around where the people that report to you are working and thank them for doing what they do every day. Not going around and saying, oh, you're the greatest since anybody's ever done this job. Just tell them thank you for doing what they do every day. Holy cow. It's not that hard. And it will offer all kinds of rewards that people will feel better about themselves. They'll feel better about working with you. And it's a simple thing to do. And I knew I was never going to make this happen, but I told executives and managers, I said, when you have celebrations, you shouldn't be singling out people to say, these are the heroes. Just as you wouldn't single out a bunch of them saying, you guys are the scapegoats. So don't single out the heroes. And oh, by the way, it might be better to celebrate things and the celebration be, we're celebrating because we like what we're doing and we like working with each other. Not that we achieve some milestone, not that it's somebody's birthday, you're celebrating because we like each other. We like what we're able to do together, and we're happy to be doing this. But I knew I wasn't going to make that. We always have to have a reason to celebrate. And the reason is bogus because it has nothing to do with us. It's always got something to do with some one or two or three people. It's crazy. Yeah, I do like the video. When Deming does it, he's really good about his straight face and being the manager. Just he's not being nasty or ugly or anything. He's just doing what managers do. Hey, you were better yesterday. What the hell happened?
Right.
He had a lot of practice at it, though. I don't know how many times he did that. It's got to be hundreds, if not thousands of times.
What is interesting is also some of the behaviors that manifest itself in these exercise, where persons try to put back red beads, where persons try to think, and to me, one of the points that comes out also is the importance of the definitions and having a shared definition, because quite often, you're sent into the game, the simulation, but you're given limited information. That happens in the workplace. Getting limited information happens quite a bit, and only the manager, quote unquote, has the definitions of what is good and what is bad, or they give you a very vague interpretation of that definition. So then persons just interpreted, well, once I have a red bead, but whoever really said that the red bead was good or bad? You know, people just interpret, and then people try to put back beads. They feel badly based on their performance, the so-called performance. But again, is the system that you put in. So it's designed to actually get the results that comes out. And you can't beat the capacity. So it really highlights the fact that like I said, a good person will be defeated by the bad system.
Yep. 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 And Deming talks about that in the earlier chapter when he says that the majority of the influence on the outcome is the system's effect on the person, not the person himself. The person just another cog in this giant thing that's probably not understandable. And so, and I find it interesting too that companies haven't responded to the idea that in order to do a good job, you need to know the purpose of your job and how it fits into the purpose of the overall system. Some companies manage to get a mission statement or some kind of purpose statement published, but very few of them are able to get people to understand how they fit into achieving that purpose so that they can then say they know the purpose of what they're doing. And his classic example is, what does it take to wash a table? And when we asked people that question in class, it was, well, you're going to need some soap, you're going to need some water, you're going to need a cloth, you're going to need this. And they say all kinds of things. But I've never heard anybody say, I need to know why I'm washing the table. And as Deming points out, if you're going to do surgery on it, that's a whole different kind of wash than if you're going to play cards on it. So if you're going to do a good job, you kind of have to know the purpose to which the table is going to be put.
Yep, if you're
And
going to
most,
do food, and if you're going to prepare food, or if you're going to
yeah,
manufacture some product, it clean itself means something different in the
yeah.
context. It might be
And,
clean and
and,
sanitized, but you just say clean.
and when people are working for a company, especially a company that's any bigger than about 100 people, it's not always easy for them to see the purpose of the company and how their job fits in. But they're not willing to do something without having a purpose. So they make up a purpose, and that purpose they execute, having no idea whether it's useful to the overall purpose of the company or not, because there are very few people just do something to do it. They have a purpose. So Jay might might not be a purpose that fits whatever's going on, but at least they don't have to say, I'm doing this thing and there's absolutely no purpose in it. And when you have an organization of 100 people and you got 100 people making up their own purpose for what they do, you don't really have a system that's going to be effective. I'm not even sure you have a system because from Deming's perspective, any man-made system has to have a purpose.
I was just thinking about a student that was telling me who was she's a hostess at work, and like how she expected to like greet the customers and everything and make sure they sit down with the menus properly, and kind of give them a good first impression of the restaurant. And that's what I was like, oh, okay. So she knows her purpose in the company to kind of understand that like she's the first face people see. So if you have a bad hostess and they're like, have a seat there, whatever, then it's going to be a different experience for that people or those people rather than someone who's bright and friendly and hey, enjoy your food. Like your server's amazing, blah, blah, blah.
And then, and then even knowing that, the company hasn't figured out that the hostess can be really good, but if the chef sucks, that's a problem. So you got to figure out how to get things working together, and 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 you can get one part of it working really well, but what you're after is the interactions and understanding the interactions. And if if some of the hostesses are are behaving in a way that the people that work in the kitchen don't like, and the people that work in the kitchen are going to be doing things that doesn't help, that don't help what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's those, a lot of us who eat in those restaurants decide we're going to tip. So, well, you had a good experience. Who do you tip?
Right.
It's you had a good experience because a whole bunch of things work together. So how do you tip that whole bunch of things? I found on some little story on the internet I found speaking of tipping, that I found fascinating is this this totally remote kind of luncheon thing where you put your money in and whatever you want pops out. So it's basically a candy machine, but it's got other kinds of food that might be more like lunch. And when you push the button and put your money in, and then before it sends you the thing you ordered, it pops up with a light that says, "Do you want a tip?" So you're supposed to tip the machine. Okay.
Or maybe the person servicing the machine, who knows?
Yeah, maybe he's putting the right food in it or something. I don't know.
I don't know. So weird. So weird.
Yeah, I'm not convinced I'm going to be running around tipping robots. I just doesn't seem appropriate.
I tell them, but yeah, I think we also really need to look at what we're going to do to the system when we think that we're replacing all these humans with robots, from the perspective of will the robots pay taxes, and what that might mean for delivery of services and everything else.
Yeah,
But
there's interesting systemic things that go on, and I'd never thought of it, but somebody earlier this year I saw it mentioned that one of the reasons corporations are okay with the government having Social Security and having some kind of health care is the corporation doesn't have to provide it then. So the corporation doesn't have any obligation. And so they will support things that keep those other things going so that the workers don't get so upset that they say, hey, we're going to quit working if you don't give us this. And I find it fascinating that I suppose I should have realized it earlier that the government and corporations are working together to screw the people. And I found out reading more on the Olympics, Lindsey Vonn, who screwed up her leg rather severely when she fell in the skiing event. And evidently, I heard today, could have lost a leg. They were having problems because the blood all wants to go where the problem is, and it was building up all kinds of pressure, was going to create a problem. They might have to amputate her leg. But they did 3 different surgeries on her. It's an Italian hospital. She's a US citizen, cost her nothing. They have health care that covers the people who are in the country using it.
Oh,
Have the same thing in Brazil when I go to Brazil. I remember going down, and before we go down, we'd see what shots we might need depending on where we're traveling in the country. Then I went down one time and we said we didn't have time to get to the doctor and get some shots here. So I said, well, can we get them in when we get down there? And Ileana said, yeah, sure. When we got down there, not only we could get them in the airport. You walk in and they gave us our shots. We needed 2 different shots. I don't even remember what they were for. Might have been Zika and something else at the time. They gave us our shots and sent us on our way, which makes perfect sense. You don't want some people coming into your country infecting your citizens.
mm-hmm.
Like to be yellow fever.
Yep. Yellow fever is a tougher one because, as I recall, it's like 3 shots over time. So you have to do them in advance. You can't walk into the airport and get them.
But what a great way to keep up with tourism rather than having to send people away is, oh, you didn't do this, come here, stab, stab, go ahead, enjoy your day.
Ileana, in France, she got really, really sick, and it wasn't a food thing, whatever it was. We were at a restaurant at the time. It wasn't a food thing, but the restaurant called an ambulance. The ambulance took her to the hospital. I went there, spent some time with her. She spent a day in the hospital. Then we went back to the hotel. That was it. The French took care of it.
Dang.
And you would think a country that has as much wealth as this one might be able to do similar things, if not for the people visiting, at least for the people who live here, for heaven's sake.
But they don't understand the system. They think everybody is, you just are out for yourself and that's it. And yeah.
There's a belief if bad things happen to people, it's because something's wrong with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not because life happened.
Like, I feel like America has no sense of community.
Yeah.
Because I used to go to Mexico a lot and I was like, man, like Mexican people really have a sense of community. And like they gather around each other and help each other out. And you just don't see that here without big drives for fundraising and making it enticing for the people to do something. And it's just
the Brazilians are like that too. And in fact, they continue their community outside the country. Here, when Ileana came over, I don't know, she was 18 or whatever, but she spent a lot of time on the phone looking up names that sounded Portuguese and calling them so she could bump into any Brazilians. She bumped into a couple of Brazilians and come to find out in the Thousand Oaks area, there were like probably 10 families whose different parts of them would get together at different times and just enjoy each other and their Brazilianness. So it was really intriguing. Yeah, there's something about community. I got quite a bit of community because of my Irishness and the fact that we kept track of. I had 21 first cousins. I knew all of them. I had 8 second cousins, and I knew 6 of them really well. I mean, and we would get together once a year, once every 2 years, and just And then also on Saturdays, there was an area that we could dance in and do Irish dances. So I went there and learned the Irish square dance kind of thing that we do, and it was really intriguing. And some of the kids who were second and third generation Irish learned to do the Irish dancing, the clog dancing, the other kind of stuff they do. And so there was a community about that a lot of people don't have access to.
Mm-hmm. And I think even in the workforce too, because they do like to separate people in all these silos, and could be separating them in buildings, separating in departments, separating, in different teams and stuff like that. And so, like, this is your area you're only supposed to take care of. Don't look outside your little tiny system within the subsystem.
Yep. Yeah, we certainly don't foster community. I don't know that we oppose it. Sometimes we oppose it if we don't think we like who's forming the community, but it's them. We don't like them engineers. So I can't remember. I don't have any notes here that say I need to remember this. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The end of the chapter, the story he has about the newspaper, the Washington Post, November 16th, 1990. Don't beat your children for low grades.
Yeah.
And the newspaper said 110,000 children in Baltimore carried home with their report cards a printed plea from the school board to parents not to abuse their children for low grades. Talk about a force of destruction.
Mm-hmm. Or in the other way, paying for grades too, because that's pay for performance.
Yeah. Yep. That's Alfie Kohn says that. He says that Pizza Hut came up with this idea that they were going to help, primary school students read. So they had a program where if you read a book, you got a pizza. And the kids started reading, and they started reading more. They also started reading shorter books, easier to read books, so they can maximize the number of pizza tickets they got. and then I guess that was like the third, fourth, and fifth grade. And then in sixth or seventh grade, the teacher was saying, okay, now here's the novel we're going to read for this month or this year or whatever it was. And the kids said, do we get a pizza? And the answer was no. So a lot of them decided it wasn't worth reading because they weren't getting a pizza. Mm-hmm. But they were kids who were reading before. So what Alfie points out is you robbed them of their desire to read by giving them pizza. Now, if there's no pizza involved, they're not going to read. What the hell? And he said, we're in danger of having a generation grow up that's illiterate and overweight. Yeah. So they stuff themselves with pizza and they don't read. They've read a bunch of stuff, but they're not really reading. They're just getting pizza.
Especially if you don't read for fun, or you don't read to know the content or want to be interested in the content. Are you really absorbing that content?
Yeah. It's instead of curiosity, it's okay, this is a method for me to get a pizza. Mm-hmm. I remember there was an online comic, a guy was decided that the way he's going to train his, I don't know, 18-month-old, 2-year-old, whatever, his potty trainer is going to give her a dime every time she remembered to use the potty. And he said it didn't take but a week for her to get so much control over her bladder. She'd come in for a dime, go pee, come back 8 minutes later and ask for another dime so she could go pee.
Oh no, that's so
She
bad.
figured out very quickly how to manipulate the system to get her dime.
Yeah.
And if somebody that young can figure it out, imagine what you're doing to all these adults. You think the adults are stupid? They know when you're offering rewards for stuff, they know exactly how to get the rewards. And it has nothing to do with doing things better or doing things right. It has to do with doing things in a way that will get you an award. That's another Alfie Kohn thing. He points out that when you offer rewards for doing things, you stimulate people working for rewards.
Yeah.
And Deming thinks they ought to be working because they think they're making a difference and they can take joy in their work and pride in their work. Very different perspective. And I found it fascinating when I first bumped into Deming's joy in work. I guess I never thought about it, but that's great. That's what should happen. Anybody who's doing work for himself or for anybody else ought to be taking joy in it. And we ought to figure out how to foster that. Holy cow. So what else we got? Next week we ought to do 8 and 9, which is
8 and 9.
The funnel experiment, and then is it the funnel experiment and then it's control charts and then the funnel experiment, which those two things fit together. Schuhart's control charts and the funnel experiment. I've never tried to conduct the funnel experiment, but we had a thing here for a while where we did something like the funnel experiment. We had a launcher that would launch a. They weren't marbles because they were lighter than that. They might have been paper. You were trying to throw them and hit a target on the other side of the room, group them around there. So it was a catapult kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a relatively complicated and time-consuming activity. So I think what Deming does in the book and just shows you what's going on and tells you the results is I don't think you need to conduct the experiment yourself in order to grasp what's going on.
We did it
All
when
right.
we were on our train the trainer. We used to conduct those funnel experiments, and it actually works out just as Deming says, where you continue making these adjustments and you keep going, the spread keeps getting further and further apart.
Yeah. Yes. Off to the Milky Way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a good week. We'll see you next week.
Yay.
Yay. And keep those kids happy.
Sure.
I mean, do what you can do to help. That's all.
Oh, there's a video on the funnel experiment. So I think we can watch that too.
Yeah.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there is a video on the Deming Institute page.
I'll go look because I don't think I've seen them.
I don't think I've ever seen the funnel experiment.
No, no. I'll go look though.
This guy, Dr. Burns, actually has a simulator, I think available free online as well now.
I do remember having a simulator so I could do it in Excel or something. I don't know. I could do it online. I could push a button and it would land the thing. but a real physical thing I've never done. But that'd be interesting. And I sometimes forget the Deming site has so many things. I'll take a look.
Sweet.
Thanks for that. All right.
You have the
Happy,
original.
happy February.
Yes, happy February, the end of February.
Yeah, we're phasing out February.
Yeah.
Although I noticed something that happens every once in a while. March from the 1st through the 28th, same as February. The 1st of March and the 1st of February are on a Sunday. And so the first 28 days
Yeah.
of February and the first 28 days of March are identical as far as dates go.
2 Friday 13ths in a row.
Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, have
All
a great
right.
week. God willing.
Thanks. Let me see. I'll save our recording. Record, captions, breakout rooms, whistles. Stop recording. No, that's stop incoming video. Somewhere there's a stop recording button, guys. Stop recording. There it is. I found it.
Yay.
Well, of course, it's the guy you go to record and hold your cursor over that, and it shows you pause recording or stop recording. But the first button you see says record, which doesn't lead you to believe you want to jump into that.